You're listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner.
This is Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner. Without Charge, actually, though, because Charge is at some state fair, some state, wandering the Midwest aimlessly as he does. So, out of the kindness of his heart and out of mainly pity, I think, the estimable Tim Scarborough of ESPN, TBT analyst, is on the call today with us. Scar, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm good, Hayner, man. Good to be hanging out with you here physically in person in Dayton, but certainly on Zoom to TBT. Happy to co-host.
Yeah, thanks for helping out there. And yeah, it has been fun at Dayton. So like the crowds, we'll get in the whole show in a minute, but the crowds have been intense, right?
Oh my gosh. I mean, TBT, I mean, John Mugar has to be giddy. I'm sure he didn't even sleep because of the energy flowing through his veins right now. Because, I mean, you got the aftershocks in the quarterfinal in Wichita, only to be outdone by the Red Scare going this far, you know. And when you look at it on paper, it was clearly an advantage for Red Scare. They literally can play 6 games on their home court. Imagine if the NCAA tournament was played at Allen Fieldhouse, the whole thing, or at least the six, at least the 6 games that Kansas played in, right? I mean, that is an extreme advantage. But people that follow mid-major basketball like I do understand that Dayton is one of the greatest college basketball towns in all of America. So when the Red Scare or the Flyers are playing, the people are going to come out and watch. And in fact, and people probably don't know this, I'm sure some people do, the first four is played in Dayton every year.
Every year.
Doesn't matter who the teams are in the NCAA tournament, but the first four is always played in Dayton on the Tuesday night because of the crowd participation primarily. It's a really good town to host a tournament. So a really good move by John Mugar and Dan Friel to first elevate Red Scare a little bit and then, get the tournament here. That's great.
Well, what is interesting too is we talked about this, and we'll keep a loose show here, but we'll bring this up. The way they pick the regions is always interesting because you and I have had the pleasure to go to multiple ones. You called West Virginia, you called New Mexico. I covered Syracuse, Rutgers, West Virginia, and now here. So we've all been to a bunch of regions, and they've done a remarkably good job at picking regions that had high levels of engagement, and some of them even beyond the alumni teams. I know West Virginia showed up pretty well. And Dayton's been a good show, even when the Red Scare haven't been playing. So this has been a fairly impressive showing by the host, and they shall, I guess, give themselves a round of applause. But we already have a prediction, Charge, real quick. We've got somebody saying it's going to be Autism versus Buffalo for the chip. So Izzy's saying that's his pick. Let's get into the picks, I guess. Let's get into this. So we got the undercard, so to speak, and that's a pretty dominant undercard. We have the Aftershocks, the 1 seed, the Wichita Regional Champions, who have to play 4 games on their own home floor versus the Americana for Autism or the Autism Army, take whichever pick you want, the 2 seed and the Rutgers Champions. So look at these stats. I almost said Charge out of muscle memory, Tim. I'm sorry. I'm like, yeah, you're much better looking than Charge. So like, look, now you and I watched the Autism versus TNT game. And we were really impressed with how hard Autism played.
Yeah, and I remember someone sitting to my right was saying that TNT should win this one handily, and I looked at that person, no names, and I said, "Not so fast, my friend." I mean, the Autism Americana for Autism has a lot of veterans. They have pros too. The guy on my left was Eric McCullum, who of course is a new to my business, trying to break into broadcasting, but he's still playing overseas, and he knows these guys as well. And I was just going to say, leave it to the experts, Hayner, because the two of us were saying Americana has a great chance to win this game. But in all seriousness, they play really well. They have a really good team of veterans. Delroy James, 13 points a game. Isaiah Swan, Nigel Johnson, all double-figure scorers. And as a result, man, they do. You just said it. They play hard. They're well coached, and that's what I really love about the teams in the TBT this year. The last few years, but certainly, man, there's a lot of good young coaches out there and some veteran coaches. But the teams that are the most organized at this point are going to be the ones that go further.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and stick with Autism Army. Before we get into the analysis, it might be helpful for people to remember what they're playing for. So we were at the press conference. I think I'm going to go ahead and we should go ahead and not play that, actually. I had that loaded. I don't have it loaded. Never mind. The first technical difficulty of the show. We'll play that in a little bit later. But you're saying the fact that Delroy James, for example, now the funny story about him is his child was born before that game. So he actually didn't see the birth. He FaceTimed the birth of his child to be here. So how does that speak to how much this means to these players?
I don't know, but I'm going to say his wife is the real MVP, allowing him to go play for that money and under those circumstances. Not a lot of wives will say, "No, go ahead, honey, go play basketball. I'll just have this baby." So, but yeah, he played well too. I mean, a lot of times when you have life things coming at you, sometimes you tend to be distracted on the court, but he was nice and focused. And of course, he's still here. He literally hasn't met his baby yet. So she probably thought, yeah, go ahead and play that game. You'll lose and be back on Friday. She thought TNT was going to win too. But yeah, they are playing well. They're going to be tough to beat today too, honestly.
Definitely. And what's interesting about this matchup, too, is their road to get here, as we see on the slide, was pretty interesting because if you look at this, we'll minimize us getting the slide. You can see that, like, basically that Peacock Nation game, I was there for that. And if Desi Washington gets one more look at the basket, they're out in the first round. That speaks to how tight this tournament can get because they were on the ropes in their very first game at Rucker. But again, the name is Survive and Advance, and they got past Big Five. They played an extremely game HBCU United team. And then, of course, playing TNT, which was at that point probably the favorite. Like, how much, as a guy who's played, at the highest levels as you have, how much does changing from the concrete to the wood, was that a factor, you think, in their comfort level, or was that just a non-factor?
Honestly, it's definitely a factor. I don't know if it's a factor of winning or losing, but as far as quality of life in terms of playing basketball, it's a huge difference. And I give credit to the 8 teams that went to New York. I know some of them want exposure, and the teams that are playing for a cause like Autism's Army, Autism Americana for Autism, they certainly got a lot of exposure because the Rucker was well covered by ESPN. They sent the 18 the broadcast, not me, and
You're the
as
18, Jim.
no way, and they as a result, I got to take my hat off to those guys, or you take your hat off to those guys for me, because going to play outside is really difficult, and playing outside for something worthy, whether it's a cause or $1 million, man, that's still I don't think I would have wanted to do it as a player. But I think TBT did a great job of putting on a good show in terms of TV. The court looked great. It looked great on TV. I'm just saying from the standpoint of a player playing on concrete or blacktop versus the indoor, man, they had to be feeling great when they got to Dayton, man. So, yeah, give them a lot of credit for going out there. And truthfully, I hope TBT does take it back to Rucker Park again, because it really was an overwhelming, smashing success in terms of viewership and participation. We got to see Pee Wee Kirkland and some of those other living legends that helped start Rucker Park and make
Lance
it
was
what it
there.
is
Skip
today.
was there. Yeah, Lance
Yep,
was there.
yep.
Skip
Skip
was
to
there.
my
It's pretty
Lou.
incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that Skip had a team, of course.
Yeah.
They were beating the first round, but yeah, give Autism's Army a lot of credit for playing there. So
And actually, they are playing for something else. I do have it up now. So they talk a little bit. There's a great question in their press conference after they beat TNT. And normally I take credit, but I didn't ask this question. We're going to play it anyway because they had a really good answer to this about what they're playing for. And I thought that was really interesting.
But you guys are fighting for more than that with the awareness you guys are trying to bring to autism in this community. Talk about what emotions you guys are feeling right now.
You're right. The fight for autism is more important to us, especially these guys. You got to see them in the hotel, what they speak about, what they know about. They're professionals. We take it game by game. So when we think about one game, we're not thinking about 2 games. And then after we leave this press conference, we're going to go and just think about life. We ain't worry about basketball.
To think about basketball, one last question on that, though. Your next matchup is with the Wichita State alums with the Aftershocks. What are you guys looking forward to? How are you going to prepare for that matchup with the Shocks?
Watching film.
Yeah,
Watching film. Fair question.
I mean, that's what it's about. Watching film, finding ways, how to beat them, on our end, and like on the defensive end, we just got to do it together. You know, find ways. We've been around basketball enough. We have a great group of guys that could do it on both ends of the floor. You know, and that's what it's about. You know, just put your pride to the side and do it for the next guy.
What's interesting about that too is they have this great thing where they are playing for something bigger than themselves. I mean, Delroy James has a child who has autism. A lot of those people are connected to this. They are really playing for something to get awareness of something that affects a lot of people. And of course, also the $1 million. So they have two great motivations: money and honor are two great things. But how much of an underdog are they in this game? Or does it even matter at this point? You get to this point, you're a good team. So they're probably a betting dog, but it doesn't matter at this point, does it?
It really doesn't. And by the way, Vegas has done a really good job this year of doing their homework. Those lines are really right, very accurate. You know, it's really hard to tell. A lot of times with TBT last year, they would put the line up, and I'm go, man, go hard on this side or go hard on that side. That team's not going to cover or whatever. But it's been much harder this year. And I'm not a gambling guy, but I do look at the lines just to see how other people are feeling about the game. No, I'm with you. But no, I don't think they should be an underdog today because here's the thing that the aftershocks have to adjust to: the shock of not being in front of 7,000 fans that are all for them. You know, now they'll have some people here on their side, but it's gonna be a little more, it's a little different to have to take your show on the road and win. You know, the last time they came to Dayton, we remember they got boat raced. They got beat by 30 plus by Florida TNT, which is why all of us were so high on that TNT team going into even 2 days ago before they lost. But yeah, the aftershocks were hitting the mouth last year, but this year I think they're a little better. I think Dickey, the kid from UNC Greensboro, number 11, the big, gives them a different look and gives them more toughness inside. And he does a lot of dirty work. And they still have a core of guys who have been playing in TBT over the years. And of course, Connor Framkamp, who you see on the picture there, one of the better shooters in TBT, but he hasn't had to carry the load by himself. You know, he's one of 3 or 4 guys in double figures. So they're a really good team. The team that plays the hardest is going to win this game, and that's the secret to TBT. Honestly, the teams that put out more effort, especially at that defensive end, and make it disruptive, because you're playing pros. These guys can make shots even under difficult circumstances. So you have to turn up the heat a little bit more and not give up good looks, because good looks are cash money. I mean, they're going to go make those shots more often than not.
Yeah, you mentioned we were talking about this, and we meant that in context of the TNT autism game and also the hard fire blue collar game yesterday. It's like when you have two really good teams, even a 3% effort, and blue collar and hard fire are teams that both play really, really hard. I mean, they both play hard, and both teams played hard yesterday. But blue collar played like the 2% harder, just 2%, and that was the margin in an extremely close game. So really, when the margins are that small, getting on the floor for that one loose ball, that's what does it. Honestly. But we were able to sit down and talk with the GM and head coach, Zach Bush of the Aftershocks. And he had one bit of news that's interesting in this interview, which I'll go ahead and run this now. It's about 8 minutes, but really good information about one player we might be seeing today, which is good news for Wichita State fans. Let's go ahead and run it. Hey, this is Zoom, the TBT of Charge and Hayner. We have a real pleasure in anticipation of a national semifinal. Not even speaking right. We're going to keep rolling, though. National semifinal game between the Aftershocks and Autism Army. We have Zach Bush, the GM and head coach of the Shocks. Zach, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. We just got in a few hours ago. We had an early morning. We had 6 a.m. flights, so we're all a little sleepy here, but getting in, getting settled, and getting ready to go for tomorrow.
Now, your situation is unique in the sense that you were able to play one extra home game. And again, like TBT is set up to obviously drive some gate product. And the Wichita fans really showed out, setting attendance records for the event, really giving a home crowd. And how much of the energy did you need to get past this really tough Gutter Cat gang?
Yeah, it was tough. We won't pretend it probably didn't, have an effect. We definitely feed off of their energy. I think at the same time, these guys are pros. They play in, really good leagues overseas. So it's not like they've never seen, a hostile crowd. If you watch some of these games that they play, especially EuroLeague, Champions League, the crowds are insane. I mean, they're shooting off fireworks. So they've played in tough environments, but it obviously, I think, pumps us up a little bit. And was nice. I think I saw a tweet that Tyrese Rice after had made a comment, something along the lines of, I hate losing, but especially when it's not a level playing field or something. It's like, come on, dude. Like, Dayton's playing their whole thing at home. Like, come on, man. Like, Syracuse, they host a regional. West Virginia hosts a regional. All these things. Like, don't be mad because our fans show up better than anybody else's. Like, if you didn't want to, you shouldn't have gone to the Omaha regional then. If you didn't want to end up
thinking that actually, because
No.
Rice is incredible. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no hate on them because we have the utmost respect for them. They're incredible. They're big time. They've got phenomenal pros, but at the end of the day, you still got to go out and play the game. So it was an incredible game, tough battle. Both teams played really well. Just look at the field goal percentages, 3-point percentages. It was a high level basketball game.
Yeah, I mean, you guys shot 67% from three, which is pretty much not able to be replicated. That doesn't happen in nature. That's more like a video game thing. So you need every one of those to go in to win that game. You guys also have a lot of really balanced scoring. I mean, like, obviously, Frank Camp's sort of the name, but you guys have everybody being a weapon. The minutes distribution, no one's playing more than 26, but everybody's within the low 20s, high teens, which in a 36-minute game makes sense. Talk about how much easier as a coach it makes your job to have so many capable players to mix and match and keep everybody fresh.
Yeah, it's great. I think it makes you difficult to guard. That was part of the reason we, constructed this roster the way we did, is we didn't just want to get, 10, 11 guys and then play 7 or 8 of them. We went and got guys who could actually impact the game and play. And we thought that was going to make us tough to guard because, as you've seen the last couple of games, like, if you try to take away Connor, fine, go ahead. We got other guys, that can still be weapons. And, like a guy like Tyrese McGee, who you may look at his points per game in this tournament and think like, wow, he hasn't even played that well. But what he brings defensively and then his ceiling, any game he's liable to go for 5-6 threes. So, we still think we have another level that we can hit, but we definitely love the balanced attack and think it makes us a little bit tougher as opposed to having just 2 guys who can go and get it and kind of have to keep you afloat and win you ball games.
Now, you mentioned McGee, and actually my partner and I were talking about that. Charge is a big McGee fan. Is he here? Is he going to be able to go tomorrow?
Yes. Tyrus met us here. He just got in. So that's huge for us. Obviously, guard play. Yeah, just his defensive intensity. He's probably one of the best perimeter defenders in this, and shot making ability as a creator, can play the 1 or the 2. So it's huge having him back for us.
That is a big add. That's good news for you guys. Now, going into your next matchup, obviously, and again, like, nobody gets this far without being a quality team, but there was one team that came into Dayton as a decided underdog. And that just shows you that underdogs have their days, because America for Autism, or Autism Army, I think the answer to both names actually, was able to pull off a fairly shocking upset of what may have been the tournament's favorite to win the whole thing in TNT. You obviously had to start scouting both teams in a knockout event, but like, what of a different sort of challenge does the Americana for Autism team face for you? I mean, obviously Delroy James is an inside-outside bucket, and they have Johnson, Monroe, and Brown on the perimeter. Like, how do you see them as a different challenge than TNT?
Yeah, all really talented players. I think Florida TNT was so tough for us just because of their interior size. We went small last year, and we finally paid for it. And then on top of that, they just have 3 guards that shoot the lights out of it. And I mean, I wouldn't say that Americana shoots bags. You look at their percentage from this last game, that's what won them the game. Like, they just made 3 after 3. So just a little bit different play style, I think. TNT's been in this a little more veteran. Just kind of, you think, knows how to win, but obviously Americana's doing something right. They seem to be playing really good basketball, shooting the ball at a high level. We'll have to really be able to defend. And as you're touching on, it's bench points for Americana. They have multiple dudes who can go in and score. And so kind of similar to us, that it's not just one guy, whereas, Florida TNT is kind of a Dominique Jones led thing. Americana, you've got multiple guys that can hurt you and their weapons.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting because, like, I think it's a great story. I mean, Delroy James actually playing 3 hours after the birth of his son, which he saw versus Face. So that's an incredible story. You guys have enjoyed some home cooking, and you go from one of the great environments in college basketball, because Wichita State fans, and as a Memphis fan, we're in the same conference. I won't say never. I rarely see a fan base as engaged as Wichita. But now you're going from a straight home game to a neutral court tomorrow, a neutral court. Against Autism, probably will be pretty neutral. But if you're able to get through and Dayton's able to get through, that could be the epitome of a road court. If there's the fans that are the equal of Wichita State, The Red Scare fans, Dayton fans, are pretty much their peers. So is it interesting to go from a straight home court situation to one that could be one of the most hostile environments in America?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was something, that was tough for us last year. It was only our second time playing in the tournament as a team. And, we hadn't gotten out of the regional before, and then we do, and then we play the early game. I think we played like a noon game, and just it was tough for us. Anybody who's played AAU or high school tournament basketball, you never want the early games. And some people say, well, noon isn't that early. When you're a pro and you're used to playing at 7 p.m., it's early.
It's early.
Yeah. So I think, we will have learned from last year and learned that we've got to manufacture our own energy, and we don't have a crowd to rely on. And then, if things were to work out in our favor and we ended up in the finals and things worked out for Dayton, that would be, like you said, the epitome of a road game. And if there's one crowd that could probably match ours in TBT, it's Dayton. So we'd have to be making a call out to Shocker Nation to make the 10-hour drive out here and hopefully have a little bit. But with some of our guys, we have experience playing here. We played, let's say it was my sophomore, junior year. We played in the first 4 game here. We beat Vanderbilt by 20. Just going to throw that one out there, So we've got some wins in this building. Connor Frankamp, Rashard Kelly, Marcus McDuffie all on that team. So we like this building, but we're definitely going to have to manufacture our own energy and aren't going to have a crowd to rely on.
Now, having said all of that, and I'll leave you this. I know you're busy. I appreciate taking the time. You have some film to break down. You got a game, so we got to let you get back to work. But I'll leave you with this. TBT presents a very interesting vibe for the alumni teams to come back and fight for the colors, to come back and fight for their fan base, which is a unique situation. That's kind of the sort of beauty of this tournament. As you've left Wichita, any final words on what TBT has meant to Wichita and vice versa, what Wichita has brought to TBT?
Yeah, it's been, first for our fan base, it's been huge, giving them a chance to watch guys that they never thought they would see in those colors in Koch Arena again. You can just see the excitement and the joy on their faces. They love basketball and they have such a great appreciation for when it's played the right way. So for us to be able to give that to them, it's really exciting, especially after the program's been through some difficult stuff the past few years. And then, for TBT, I think it's a great mutual partnership. I think they get a great fan base who is going to show up, buy tickets, and helps, promote the brand that is TBT. When you're flipping on ESPN, like a lot of us were years ago, and like, wow, what is this? Boeheim's Army, like it's got to be something with Syracuse. When you see Aftershocks and you see all those fans, it just gives, I think, name recognition to TBT and helps take it to another level. So we love the alumni side and love what Dayton has done with this, love what Syracuse has done, and hopefully it can continue for all of us.
Sounds great. This is GM and head coach Zach Bush of the Sox. Thanks for coming on, and good luck tomorrow.
Appreciate it.
Okay, have a great game. Take care.
See you.
So, Scar, a lot to unpack there, but the most pertinent thing, from a basketball standpoint, Tyus McGee's going to play. That was a big thing. He was unable to play all the games in Wichita. That's a massive, massive add for the Aftershocks. What kind of a dimension does that help them in this game, you think?
You got to be careful, though, when you have chemistry. And then you add a piece, especially one that you think is going to play a lot of minutes and hasn't played with the team, it can be a negative, but I don't think it will be. I've seen Overseas Elite bring in guys at this stage and still be able to play. They were really an exceptional team, though. But I would say McGee is certainly going to help them. But again, I would be leery of bringing in someone, even a good player, a great player, even, just because of chemistry. Chemistry is everything at this level. And I mean, you think about these alumni teams are the ones that are kind of advancing, and they've won the last 3 years now, maybe going to be 4 if Autism's Army doesn't hold on, because we have 3 alumni teams of the Final Four, which, by the way, is going to break a tie. There's been 4 non-alumni teams and 4 alumni teams, so this is it. And I'm sure people will cry it's unfair if the Red Scare end up winning the whole thing, because there is no home court for a non-alumni team, but there certainly is, as we've seen in Wichita, West Virginia, New Mexico, and even Virginia when VCU had a home court advantage.
Richmond
was great. Remember, Richmond was great. Richmond was great. Yeah, I called that region a couple times, and of course I used to live there. But that region, Overseas Elite had to overcome VCU on their floor. And they have beat that Ram Nation team a couple times, but that last time was they didn't even get a chance to play the VCU team on their floor because they lost in the first round. But yeah, going into it, and I agree the Tyrese Rice tweet, and I love Tyrese Rice. I'm one of his biggest fans, and he was a key component of that Bayheim's Army team last
Reigning
year,
MVP for one
winning
man.
it all.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so I think the tweet was misplaced. I know it was out of frustration because going in who you're playing. You know you were gonna have to play a virtual road game if you got that far because you knew they were probably gonna get that far. So you just have to be ready to overcome that. So
Now, it's funny you mentioned the whole thing about McGee. And to be fair, McGee only missed one game. I'm going to post this thing we got on the feed from one of the people watching. Don't you think that adding a player to a roster messes up cohesion in the middle of a tournament? Who has been a successful team when doing this in recent years? Now, I'll speak to the generalities because you are the smarter of the two of us. So I'll do the general and then ask you a question. This did manifest itself in the Shocks Hines game because Kyle Hines hadn't played on, the Gutter Cats yet and came back and he put in his usual good performance, but you wonder adding a player with his impact part of the way through a run can be a problem. Has there been a team with a late reinforcement that it's actually paid off that in your memory? I'm sure we're missing one, but I can't remember one.
Yeah, I believe Overseas Elite did it. I just can't remember. I know man, I don't know if it was, well, think about the first time Overseas Elite ever played.
Mhm.
They only had 4 guys and they got a 5th one. And then the second game they added some players. And the third game they had DJ Kennedy show up. So that's a good example of because they just needed bodies, but they are good bodies, they turned out. But it's hard to win these games 5-on-5, and this is pre-Elam too. So but yeah, that's an example. I would say I thought TNT added a player last year, but I can't remember who they added late. Oh, it was I was thinking it was Quincy Ford. No, it was another guy that played on DRC that came in late for them. He missed the first few games. I can't think of his name now, but yeah, it certainly is not the end all be all. Brandon Rozelle played for Heart Fire yesterday. He hadn't played the whole time, and they gave him a few minutes in the middle of the game, and he was ineffective, and then he didn't really play the rest of the game.
Team Arkansas, Hannah's understandably was at Summer League, and he was still staying there because obviously Summer League has state presence. That's great for your career. But he came and he played minutes for Arkansas, and they went down to the Gutter Cats. That probably has less to do with them, more to do with the Gutter Cats, though. Okay, so I think this will be a pretty good game. I've been going – the funny thing about this matchup is I talked to the Aftershocks GM and also – with autism, I've picked against both these teams every step of the way. So it shows you how smart I am, obviously. So I'm not going to pick this game because I've been betting against both. I think the Shocks find a way to win, but we're going to see a close game. Do you want to venture a guess, or do you even care? It's just going to be a tight game, right?
Yeah, I don't like picking games in public anyway. But I think it's going to be a good game. I think Autism Army, Americana for Autism, they're veterans. They embrace the fact that people think they're not going to win every week too, every night. And they're tough. Nigel and Nick Perkins. I mean, now Nick Perkins plays for Buffalo, but
look at that.
Delroy James. I mean,
bucket.
Yeah, they got guys who know how to score. They're going to play hard defense on you and make it tough and very physical. So yeah, that's a good formula to win in TBT.
I also think it's interesting because, I think a lot of the reason a lot of people discounted Autism Army or American for Autism is they went to Rucker, and the assumption was by a lot of people in this community, if you went to Rucker, you were taking the only spot you were offered. You were almost a second class citizen because of the concrete, and it'd be kind of hilarious if they win this whole thing because then you might see a lot more applications to Rupper next year. They won out of Rucker. We should go to Rucker. That seems to be the place to get ready. That should be a good matchup. Moving it along, though, this is where it gets into. So first of all, before we get into the analysis of this, again, the crowd, was this one of the better, if not maybe not the best, but is this like a top 5 TBT crowd, a top 3? We've already spoken about Dayton being one of the best college basketball cities in America. But where does this rank in the hierarchy of TBT sites? Top 3, top 5? What are we thinking here? Richmond, Wichita, go ahead.
I gotta say that was the best experience I had as a TBT person. I've never gotten to go to Wichita because I'm always calling games in another region while they're going on. but I go to all the quarterfinals, semis, and finals. And last year was here in Dayton, and Chicago was pretty good before COVID. Of course, 2020 we were all in the bubble. Um, but yeah, I'd say yesterday's experience was by far my best experience in terms of crowd noise and just the electricity of a building. But when you watch on TV, Wichita is at least that, if not better. But yeah, I'd say top two. Richmond was really good when VCU was good and had a team in. But yeah, I'd say top three for sure, but maybe two.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it
And
was a
hey, and if
wonder.
Red Scare continues, it will be number one because if they win today, and I think it's going to be pretty live today, honestly. But if they win today, Tuesday night, you might have to open up some more of the seats in the building because everybody's going to want to come watch them have a chance to win $1 million.
Yeah, and that's quite possible, but they got a little bit of work to do first. Blue Collar U, a really good team.
They
And
do.
we talked a lot during the Heartfire Blue Collar U game, and we were watching it. And again, I picked Heartfire. Basically, this whole cycle has been me just picking the things wrong. So let's get into that right now. I picked Heartfire, and same sort of thing. Now that was an interesting matchup because Heartfire and Blue Collar U both their brands is we will outwork you. Those are probably two of the hardest working teams in this event year in year out. So what happens when the two of the hardest working teams in this event happens? The margins get real thin on effort, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at first you have to match the energy of the other team, and that's why the home court advantage is so good because you tend to have more energy when the people are behind you. Um, but you can overcome that with just executing better. You can play better than that other team, despite the fact. But if you think you're just going to play better and not match their energy, you're going to lose the game. And I feel like TNT was that way.
Yes, we talked
Autism
about
came
that.
out with more energy. TNT was more skilled, but they weren't executing, and they
Wow.
never really clamped down on defense.
No, they didn't bend their knees much the whole time, really.
Yeah, you have 16 3-pointers, and a lot of them were
Yeah.
practice shots. And that tells me that guys aren't communicating well. They're a step late. They're not cohesive. Because to play really good defense at this level or in the higher levels, pro level, even college, five guys have to be talking, talking, talking. And there's quick communications. And if you do it wrong, especially with all these ball screens and exchanges and dribble handoffs, we saw Jacob Pullen hit a 3-pointer at the buzzer for the purple and black because two guys left him because they didn't communicate. One was supposed to stay and the other was going to leave, and they were either going to switch. But whatever they decided to do, they both did it wrong, and they left Jacob Pullen to the left. And he shot an open. That was a 30-footer, and he drained a Elam Ender. I'm gonna call it Elam Ender now because I created that term, and now all the guys are using it. But TBT
Slingshot,
has
actually. Got to make sponsors happy. Slingshot.
they have
Yeah.
a big sponsor, so Slingshot. But here I can say Elam Ender because
That's true. No one
my
watches
thing.
the show. No one watches the show. It's fun too because like the reality is like it's gonna end up being one of those things where it's like, how they have the stadium sponsored by, like Soldier Field sponsored by whoever.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be the Elam Ender Slingshot. You have to say the whole thing. It'll be like a Tribe Called Quest. You have to say the exact
Yeah,
whole
you gotta
thing.
say the whole thing. Yeah, exactly.
It's a pimp named Slickback. Anyway, so the physicality of this, these are both really good teams, but like unlike the Hardfire Blue Collar U game, and these again, they're both good teams, but my impression, and please tell me I'm wrong if I am, and I usually am, Red Scare leans a little more into skill, and Blue Collar U leans a little more into physicality. Blue Collar U is skilled, Red Scare has physicality, but is that sort of the lean toughness versus skills a slight lean, or am I wrong here?
Yeah, I'd say blue collar tends to get a little bit more physical and play tougher, but they're every bit as skilled. I'd say Scoochie Smith is a difference maker for Red Scare, and we watched him just control the game, and he controls defenders like a puppet on a string. And you start running late game ball screen offense for him, and there's whatever the defense does, he's going to make the right read, and his teammates are going to deliver. But Wes Clark is a really good point guard. He's not in he's not the level of Scoochie, in my opinion. I think Scoochie might be a little better, but don't tell Wes Clark that because that dude is putting up numbers. He's putting up buckets. He's averaging 4 assists a game. He's got 14 points a game. CJ Massenberg in 2018-19. His team won 30 plus games. They won an NCAA tournament game. And CJ, quite honestly, there were a couple of NCAA tournament games. And CJ was one of the best players in the NCAA tournament and had been one of the best players in the nation around the country all season long. It's really his last 2 years at Buffalo. So CJ Massenberg is a proven commodity. Excuse me, 17 points a game in TBT. And again, these are shorter games. So,
That's a lot
17
in this
points,
36-minute
that's
game.
a whole lot. That's a whole lot of points when, he's playing 24, 25 minutes a game. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, and Nick Perkins, my gosh, I was talking to him after the game, and we were watching the Red Scare Best Virginia game, and it was really physical early. And I looked at him and said, you like how they're calling these games, don't you? And I said, when you came out of the first play, got the ball in the post, and immediately crashed into the guy, and he just stood there. And then you crashed into him again, and he stood there. And then the third time you shot the jump hook. I said, in college, I'm sure overseas, and in the NBA, that's a foul on the offense every time. He's like, yeah, I know. He said, once I saw they weren't going to call that, he said it was a wrap. So, yeah, they're definitely going to be more physical with blue collar than the skill of Red Scare. So you're right on that point, but blue collar is also very skilled, which is why for the second straight year they find themselves in the semifinals of TBT.
Hey, real quick, since we don't get them to show often, I noticed we have one guest I'd like to just bring on, talk more about atmosphere, because I don't want them crashing their car because they are driving. But let's go ahead and bring on one more guest real quick. This will be kind of funny. Hey, Andrew, can you hear us? Oh, he's still here. Let's unmute him. He's muted. Now we can hear you. You there, Andrew?
There we go.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
We can hear you. It's finally happened.
I am fired up to be on the show. Going to get some coffee right now so I can stay up through all the games, and excited for the semifinals. How you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Man.
Hey, quick, let's get into this real fast. Who won golf, you or Joey? That's the more important question.
So, unfortunately, we kind of partied it up a little bit last night. We did not make it to the golf course.
That's a good decision either way. So, Andrew, real quick, we've all been there the last couple of days, and you've been obviously hanging out a lot in the Dayton regional, the Xavier regional, and also West Virginia. Talk a little bit about how electric the atmosphere has been for you.
Yeah, so the atmosphere has been fantastic in Dayton. Dayton was, especially last night, definitely rowdier than Xavier. But what I've been hearing is that Wichita was the rowdiest of them all. So that is definitely on my TBT bucket list, is to get to Wichita for sure.
Wichita's actually a pretty nice city. My girlfriend did a film festival out there once, and she said surprisingly it's like one of the nicer cities she's been to in the Midwest. So I want to get out there 1 year or two at some point. And obviously they're going back with these kind of marketing numbers. Now, also, so you've been watching the games. What do you think will be the key of keeping sort of like the Red Scare in this game? The crowd has to support them. But like, how does blue collar kind of fight back on that? Like, do they have to just really block out the crowd? Like, what do they have to do to win this game?
Yeah, I think if there's a team out there that isn't going to really, give a crap about the crowd noise, it's blue collar U, because they're tough. They've been in crazy environments. I think Nick Perkins, CJ Massenberg, Wes Clark, I think those guys are probably excited to play in a true road game like this. They may have they missed out on that opportunity because Boeheim's Army went down early, so they didn't get I think those guys are excited. So I think the key to the game is for them is just get Nick Perkins the ball, let him be an absolute beast, and if he can do that early, it's going to open stuff up for Wes and CJ and I mean maybe Blake Hamilton will be Blake Hamilton from the first few games of TBT. The answers are there for what they can do, but we'll see if the home court advantage, continues to play in favor like we've seen with Wichita, with the Aftershocks, and with Red Scare.
Now, Scar, Andrew brings up a really good point about Perkins. Now, I know somebody I was going to bring up later, but since Andrew did it, let's just do it now. Perk is literally, I'm an architect, science says, he's an actual building. He looks like something I would design. He's that big. Like, I have drawn things smaller than Perkins and built them. So does the Red Scare Scar have an adequate front court rotation to slow Perkins down?
So if you know anything about Dayton basketball, you know they are one of the toughest physically teams too, especially in their building. Now they are highly skilled, but Josh Cunningham will be ready to bang with them. And again, they're going to let people play, but you play team defense. I don't think that you could just play Nick Perkins one on one in the post. Even Josh Cunningham was big enough, but he may not. It's just hard to do that. So to let him operate in space. So the question is you're going to leave somebody on the perimeter to go double team them. You just have to be cohesive enough defensively to rotate and close out and discourage those 3-point shots, locate those snipers and take them out. So I think the Red Scare defense as a whole will be able to slow Nick Perkins down by diving down, digging the ball out, and then closing out the shooters. But we've seen the CJ Massenberg and some of those other guys on the perimeter knock down shots even with a hand on their face. So both these teams are really gritty, well coached mid majors to high major teams in the NCAA, and they're playing exactly that way. They're bringing that style to the TBT, and I love it. I just absolutely love this matchup.
Now, Andrew, you're going to be on the baseline. We're going to be on the sideline or higher because that's kind of where I proceed. But I know you and Joey really like to get those baseline videos, which are so fun to watch. One thing I will give you advice from today, though, is because when I was in Syracuse, I kept giving Nick a little bit of grief, joking, obviously, because Nick is, again, like a behemoth, but he tends to like to think he's a point guard sometimes. And he has ball handling ability and shooting ability, so it's not like it's unheard of. So my only advice to you is like when you see him ISO'd on the wing, start running your video because you might get some like nice little 6'9" guy pulling up for threes, which can be pretty interesting clips. Like, do you think him playing outside prevents a different sort of look for blue collar?
I mean, last night he was hitting threes. He was. We've seen him hit the Euro step. We've seen him, get to the bucket. I kind of think he's like a bulkier, bigger Julius Randle almost.
Yes.
And when Randle gets going, similar to Perkins, it's like get out of the way and let him do his thing. Like if he's hitting a few threes in a row, like let him keep shooting. I don't think there's really anything that he can do that would make the team be like, hey, come on, man, pass the ball or anything like that. I'm pulling up to my Starbucks right now.
Let's go ahead and let you go then.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a long time coming. See you guys at the game tonight.
Yes, sir.
See you tonight, Andrew. Take care.
All right.
And get me one too. See ya.
All right.
Yeah, I don't need any coffee. I'm doing the Mountain Dew. So pretty good points. Andrew, thanks for coming on, Zoltan. So let's bring back up the stats, though. Let me bring up that sheet, though.
So I was kind of like, the Zach Galifianakis between two ferns. Yeah. I was between two Andrews right there. So
yeah, exactly.
That was an experience.
The funny thing is, my best friend is also named Andrew from college, so it's just a last name thing. Like very few of my friends actually call me by my first name.
Yeah, no one calls me Tim either.
Yeah, Scar.
Yeah, they call me Scar all day. So yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, so talking about this, we'll get into this. First of all, we did talk a little bit with the Dayton Flyer alumni after their win last night. So we're going to try to get them on for real, but obviously they're busy. I want to keep them concentrating. So I'm going to run that tape of how they talked about preparing and how their matchup with West Virginia and that toughness might translate to how tough they're going to have to play in another physically demanding matchup against blue collar. Let me go ahead and run that now. Coach Gruden, +5 total rebounds, 16 offensive rebounds, led to 22 percentage points. Obviously, West Virginia is a pretty physical team. Were you proud of your guys to compete physically with a team that's pretty tough and put up those rebounding numbers, leading that sort of second points?
It's a great question because that's what we talked about at halftime. We looked a little not timid, but like we weren't as tough as I think we can be. And we had 4 offensive rebounds at half, came out in the second half and grabbed 12. I think that was the difference maker. I mean, we sent a message. We were smaller in size, but I mean, not in heart and toughness, so we won the game.
As a follow-up to that, too, the team we have to play has the same sort of rep as a tough team. Will the experience tonight of being able to play a very tough team that way physically translate to tomorrow?
Definitely. I mean, I think the first team we played was big and tough, too. They were huge, and we've been battling. We always find a way. I don't know what it is about this building, but, when you put the jersey on this building, you have a toughness and a sense of pride to you, and our team has done that for all 4 games.
Yeah,
There
sorry
we
about
go.
that. Mine is stuttering. So yeah, it happens going live with this thing sometimes. So they talk about the physicality of that matchup advancing, and they're going to have a similar matchup. So am I overly concerned about this? I know Dayton does play tough defense, but they seem to be a little undersized. But you're thinking that like cohesive team defense can cover a lack of size?
No, they got Trevor Thompson too from Ohio State, who's 7 foot. And
Yeah.
what's this Kustos, another
He's
Ohio
not
State?
playing, I think, though. He's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
playing, I
yeah.
think.
He's on the
Yeah.
roster, but I don't think they have. I didn't see him there. But
He didn't show, yeah.
yeah, Thompson is 7 feet. He won't play a lot, but if they find themselves getting ground down in the interior, they'll adjust. Joey Gruden's actually not a bad coach.
He
Another
is
young
not
coach
shabby.
in TBT. Yeah, I like some of the moves. And when they I was watching the game back, Fran and Bob, of course, did a great job
Mhm.
broadcasting it. When we ESPN do the Inside the Huddle, I mean, it is some really good basketball stuff being talked about in there. And he was drawing up the elevator play that they were able to execute and actually got a lob to the basket because uh, the what West Virginia team was ready for it, but the second option was there. So, but when you got the ball in the hands of Scoochie Smith, listen, I've been calling for Scoochie to play for years, and finally this Red Scare team, I knew he'd be a difference maker, and that's the words I used on Twitter. 2 words: difference maker, because he again when he's reliable, he can score, but he wants to get other people involved. But late game, man, it's not many guards better than him. Kind of a Chris Paul like effect on the teams, whoever he plays with. And you run that ball screen offense, he's just making a great decision every time.
I like you said Chris Paul like offense because the thing is like he was really concentrating on distributing most of the game. And when the chips got down in the fourth, he was like a one-man attack for that start of the fourth to beginning of Elam. He basically scored in the fourth, I think, all the points before the Elam within the fourth because he was
Yeah.
basically a one-man offense to himself for a while. And it
Well,
wasn't his initial take, but it's where we wanted to go. Go ahead.
right. That's you're about to say it. It wasn't what he was trying to do, is what the defense was giving up. And when he was turning the corner, if they stayed on the shooters, he just kept going. If they went with the lob guy, he just kept going. And if they guarded him, then he would distribute. So again, it's choose your poison, and it's all deadly.
Yeah, they got a pretty nice team. Now the matchup they're going to have now is going to be a little different. So you're looking at this card now, and again, like at the very top of this, Massenberg, Clark, and Perkins. That's about a good a 3-pack as you're going to see in TBT of scoring. But one thing that was kind of not really talked about much is Antoine Lillard was a plus minus monster yesterday. Like he put up an insane amount of like the difference in the court is he was just steady hand help them keep under control. So, like, you have those 3 guys who can really score, but they have contributions up and down this roster.
Yeah, and of course he played at Bowling Green. He's a really good swing man. And so, when you had those little pieces to your roster from the things that you might have been missing from your alumni group, it just makes you that much better. And again, Adam Ballman's a young, good coach as well. So
Yeah.
I just think this is going to be a well coached game. Both
Fun
teams are
game.
going to
Fun game.
execute. There's going to be big shot making by both teams. I think both teams will take care of the ball and good defensive rotations. You're not going to see a whole bunch of open shots, but it's going to be a high level of skill on the floor today. A slight advantage to Red Scare, and really only because we're sitting in the city of Dayton, quite honestly.
That makes sense. Yeah, we talk about Coach Ballman. Let's talk about him. He was in the press conference today. Let's give a quick clip of what he was thinking in preparation of this game.
Tough matchup coming up. Whoever team you face, we don't know your opponent yet. Actually, as we're talking to you, there's obviously to start the other game. It's going to be the Red Scare or West Virginia. Playing in Dayton against the Red Scare might be difficult. Also, West Virginia is a very physical team. How do you prepare for such a tough matchup, either way, on such a short timeline?
Well, I mean, we'll be up for a long time tonight, but we've been a part of a lot of conference tournaments in my career, obviously, and these guys have as well, where you have to win 3 straight in 3 days. So this is nothing new to us. Obviously, we're all just a little bit older now, so we maybe need to get to bed a little bit earlier and do a little bit more with our bodies. But these guys are well versed in how to prepare, and I mean, they have to do the same thing. We'll actually have more rest than the opponent, whoever it is, tomorrow night. So hopefully we can get back to the hotel, get these guys off their feet, and go back at it tomorrow.
Adam is a really good um, steadying force for that group, and he's a really calming factor. He's a good reason why this team has gotten far last year and this year, really. Um, so like I said, they'll be well prepared, well versed, and these teams are scouting now too. I mean, so they saw Red Scare, they saw what Scoochie can do with the ball. I expect you're going to see them try to get the ball out of his hands with more blitzes and double teams and ices when he comes off of those ball screens. So when he they're going to make somebody else beat them. I suspect they'll have a really good game plan for how to guard ball screen offense. So it's going to be fun.
Now, I know you got to go soon, and we're running a bit long, so we'll leave it at this. Let's comment. So obviously, you'll make no picks here. We're expecting a really good game. Let's comment. Jacob Hirschman, who is the GM of Eberline, had a following comment, which I thought was interesting. And I think it's very interesting here. He says, Scoochie and Dayton are scary, and there's no doubt TBT wants Dayton to win, mainly because of the gate, I would think. But I agree with Izzy. Buffalo just doesn't appear to go down every single time they're on the ropes. And there's an earlier comment here from Izzy saying, Buffalo is prepared to take punches and overcome. Only team since early OE teams that would stand and overcome repeatedly. The thing about this blue-collar U team I find entrancing is they've been down a lot in last year's district tournament, and they keep fighting back. Are they possibly one of the more resilient teams in TBT history?
I think OE is clearly the most resilient team.
Of course.
Me and Eric McCullum were talking about that the other day. Multiple times they were down double digits. In a championship, they were down by 15 or 20. Yeah. Or they putting the clamp on them?
No, I always give them crap about the foul. It was a foul.
The 1 year
it was a
foul. Jeremy Pargo got ripped. Yeah, and for a breakaway Elam ender, but then they blew the whistle. But
it was a foul.
But even and that was after 3 championships too.
Yeah,
so it wasn't like but they've been down. They've been against the ropes and they've been able to overcome. But yeah, I would say other than OE, this is one of the more resilient groups I've seen. And again, in Elam ending, you can't get down too far because it just puts you so much against the 8 ball, so to speak, down the stretch. So, and these teams understand that when they start seeing the game get away, the end of the third quarter and then that first time part of the fourth quarter is by far the most important part of any TBT game. And you've seen so many teams late make that run. Remember, After Shocks was up 12 against Bleed Green the other night, and it looked like that North Texas team was going to go away. And that little window I just spoke about, man, they scored a whole bunch of points and got back in it. War Ready, same thing against the Buccaneers. So the good teams understand how to get back into the game and win, and when the time to do it which is right before the Elam ending. But you don't want to be down double digits going into Elam. You almost have no chance. So I suspect this one is going to be tight. I don't see a more than a 2-point spread, to be honest, in this one.
I'd agree with that. And I'm gonna let you go. We're gonna talk about one more thing, and then we'll close the show down. So I know we both have to go, so we have to get prepped for the 4:00 games. It's a pregame show. We have things to do. Buffalo is also playing for something more than themselves. There's that incredible tragedy, that shooting, which was just an American story that continues to happen. It's the only country that we keep shooting ourselves. It's just horrifying. How much does having something bigger than basketball, much like autism, something you're trying to unite a community, how much does playing for a community that suffered a lot help a team focus on something that's maybe less important to give somebody else something to think about?
Oh, it really is important. And, we talked about Autism's Army playing for that and players on their team with children having autism. But yeah, the Buffalo community was hit really hard with that racially motivated shooting in the supermarket. I mean, the most innocuous place you'll ever go, but tragedy strikes anywhere these days in America.
Yeah, it really
unfortunately. Does. But yeah, I mean, they wearing the names on the back of the jerseys, similar to what Challenge ALS does, to bring attention and awareness. It really is. It makes you want to root for them, personally. But yeah, I love that about TBT. Yet another thing that makes TBT a unique basketball experience.
Yeah. On that note, I think we'll leave it there. It should be a fun day. Thanks for jumping on the preview, Scar. We really appreciate it. My guest host today, guest co-host and good friend, Tim Scarborough of ESPN. Thank you for stopping by.
No problem.
And this has been Zoom to TBT with Charge Hainer and today's Scar signing off.
Hope you enjoyed listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hainer. Subscribe to YouTube, follow on Twitter, and give us your money.